right now. David, I sent you a request. See if.
Having put a comment in the comment section. Oh,
Oh
there
my
we
God.
go. All right.
All right, there we go.
Thank
Oh,
you. Yay.
hi.
Hey, great to see you both.
Good to
Great to
see
see you too. Thank you for coming on. Sorry
Yeah.
about the mix up earlier.
Oh, totally okay. No problem at all. Yeah,
Welcome back. Thank you for joining.
absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's always nice to hang out with the two of you.
Thank you so much.
It
I,
is.
I, I feel like it's an early Christmas present.
It kind
Well,
of
thank you. That's very
is.
kind of you to say.
I've been waiting
Yes.
all day for 9 o'clock. I'm counting the minutes and thinking, and I've listened to so many different recordings of you that it's like and I learned some things I didn't already know, and I'm thinking, when will I know all of this? And I guess never.
Well,
It's life is a learning process, right? It wouldn't be as much fun if we knew everything.
true.
So it should be quite a bit of a journey to continue to learn each day.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Well, we're
Absolutely.
glad to have you. Thank you for coming back. I think Krystal was going to kick this off with some questions for you, and we got a lot of people that are very interested in what this has
Yeah.
done.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
David, so let's just start with, where did you start in all this? Like, how did you come up with this? How, like, where did this all begin?
Actually, that's such an interesting question. I suppose, when I was quite young, I knew that I wanted to be an inventor. And I won't get into telling that story since I've told it so many times
Right.
before. But that really did start me on my path. And then when I was in college, I had an opportunity. I was going to grad school, and I had an opportunity to do cancer research. I approached the chairman of the biology department, and I had a concept for selectively destroying cancer cells. And this was based on the idea that we could the membrane of a cancer cell is very different than a healthy cell, and
Mhm.
the voltage potential around the cell is much lower. So I thought if we might be able to tune into a cancer cell and selectively destroy it. So I convinced the chairman of the biology department to give me a lab. I got a grant from a company in New Jersey, and I got a working relationship with the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and I was
Mhm.
studying two different types of neuroblastomas. And over a course
Wow.
of 2 years, I invented a way, at least in mice, to selectively disintegrate cancer cells. So that was a energy-based medicine approach.
Mhm.
But I think really your question is more around where did things with the patches start, and that started in the 90s when I was doing work for the U.S. Navy. I was working with government contractors like General Dynamics and Newport
Mhm.
News Shipbuilding, working on emergency systems, and I came up with this idea of improving energy through wireless communication with the human body, and off we went.
Wow. Okay, before we move on, because we obviously talk a lot about the X39, the energy enhancer patches, like, what is that doing in the body to cause people to have more energy?
Yeah, energy enhancer is um, it's really the basis of every other patch that followed, and it was designed to upregulate mitochondrial function through increases in fat burning. Biochemically, we call this beta oxidation. And back then, we didn't know a fraction of what we know today. But essentially, you stimulate the skin with a blend of different wavelengths of light. And this turns on a process in the electron transport chain. So when we take in food, it has to go through a process of being broken down and converted over into chemical energy and basic units of energy that the cell handles. ATP is what people are most familiar with. But in
Mhm.
any case, the electron transport chain is sort of an intermediary, and there's an enzyme called cytochrome C oxidase, and this increases when you expose the skin to very specific wavelengths of light, and that
Wow.
increases the amount of ATP, and it decreases body fat, and it also makes you more youthful in the process.
The key word right there.
Yes, youthful is good, and it is the doorway. The mitochondria really is the doorway if we're going to have practical age reversal and practical increases in lifespan and health span.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah.
So, yeah, so age reversal, it's not for the vanity of the age. I mean, who wouldn't want to look younger, feel younger, more energy, and all that? But the
Right.
age reversal part of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's included in the patent for the X39. Is that correct?
Well, I would say that X39 gets us part of the way there.
Okay.
And the research that I've been doing over the past few years since X39 has been looking at how can we get more complete age reversal. So, what does that mean on technical basis? Um, in the patent that you're referring to, uh, light is used to elevate the peptide GHKCU, copper peptide. And this peptide has the ability to reset about 1/3 of the human genome. So we can see people when they are using the product for several months to 1 year or more, that they start to physically look younger. And this is not just simply a cosmetic effect, is that the cells are starting to behave like younger, healthier cells. So X39 does, in fact, get us part of the way there. What I'm going to be talking about a lot more in 2024, especially towards the end of the year, is a discovery that I made in lobsters.
Yeah.
And this discovery revealed that there is a code that's in lobsters, and what I mean by that is certain structures within their bodies emit different frequencies of energy, specifically wavelengths of light. And remarkably, these codes are found in the book of Genesis, in the very first sentence of the book of Genesis. So when through the inspired word of God, the creation of the universe is being talked about, those words, if you convert those words to Hebrew, you can convert Hebrew to a numerical sequence, and that numerical sequence can be distilled down into a code that's found in species that don't age. I don't think that's a coincidence.
No.
So
Not at all.
I read something that kind of surprised me out of the LifeWave story, and I never really thought about. But when I read it, it just kind of hit me upside the head. And it says on page 25, no physician in history of humanity has ever healed a patient. Only the cells of a patient heal the patient. Only the cells know how to close wounds, understand what to do with insulin, how to destroy pathogens. The best a physician can do is move obstacles out of the ways of cells, supply materials and weapons to the cells, drugs, building blocks, leaving the fighting of the disease up to the cells. And with that being said, let me just segue into, did you ever think the X39 was going to do what it's done for so many people?
Um, I would say that I'm incredibly grateful
Mhm.
for what the X39 has done to help facilitate healing. Um, this journey on looking at how to activate stem cells began maybe 15 years ago now.
Mhm.
And the objective of it was to see that if we could bring stem cell technology to everyone, instead of having to pay thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars for a stem cell injection, can we activate and mobilize the stem cells in the body and get them to behave like younger, healthier cells? And of course, we showed through different types of devices that was in fact true. And we also received over 70 patents on those technologies. Of course, the patches being one of those technologies. So I suppose when you start out to design something, you start out with one specific objective. You don't really start
Mhm.
out by saying, "Wow, I want to create a patch that kind of does everything." It
Right.
doesn't really work that way. It's like, I suppose if you were going to write a comic book and you were going to create a superhero. Um, I nearly had the opportunity to meet Stan Lee, which would have been pretty remarkable. And, so he said, well, let's give this guy, the powers of a spider. Let's make this guy really strong. Let's make this guy fly, whatever it would be. So I think with the patches, it's very similar in the sense that you start out maybe with the idea that you want to do one very, very specific thing. But
Mhm.
then that mechanism has a ripple effect. And that's very much true with X39. While the initial objective was to simply mobilize stem cells and speed up the way the body heals, that obviously has a very profound effect on nearly every other system in the body. And so we do see things like improvements in cognition, improvements in strength, stamina, muscle recovery, improvements in the quality of sleep. So these incredible broad systemic effects.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
David, so once you started, you discovered how to activate the glutathione in the body and the carnosine and all those things, did that give you the idea like, hey, I could probably activate dormant stem cells? Like, did that light switch go on when you started creating these other things to be able to activate things within our own system? Like, how did you, I don't know if you could answer that or what, like publicly.
Actually, being completely truthful, I didn't think it was possible with a patch at the time.
Okay.
So I had invented around that time the Eon patch, and the Eon patch is it's my second favorite after the
Mm-hmm.
X39. It's
Mm-hmm.
really an ideal combination, and I know that that's the combo that you were talking about earlier today. So after I had really an extraordinary experience with that product, I had been at a party at Suzanne Summers' house, and she introduced me to a doctor, Dr. Stan Berzinski, who's a really phenomenal guy who's been incredibly mistreated by the FDA. And I started speaking with Dr. Berzinski about his work, and eventually I developed the Eon patch off of this concept that we could trigger the primitive immune system. And so the net end result with Eon
Mm-hmm.
is that it's able to balance the autonomic nervous system. So when I wanted to tackle um, the subject of stem cells, my initial thought was that it should be done through a external electromagnetic field. The patches work on very, very high frequency
Mm-hmm.
electromagnetic fields, which light is. But I wanted to approach this a little bit differently. I wanted to approach this with a physical electromagnetic coil. And so I started to think about, and like a lot of things, I'll start with prayer and look for some divine inspiration. And the thought that came in was to start modeling these coils around DNA and to try to duplicate the field that exists with DNA and then couple that field to the human body. And so that's where the journey began. And when I wouldn't say we reached a dead end with that project because on a technical level, it was incredibly successful. It just became obvious because of regulatory that it was going
Mm-hmm.
to cost tens of millions of dollars to take it to
Wow.
market. It was going to end up in hospitals and no one would be able to afford it.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's really then what forced me into the position of thinking, okay, how could we actually do this with a patch? So it really
Mm-hmm.
came full circle, which only took about 10 years. So it didn't happen overnight.
Right.
But I feel very blessed that I got to be on that journey. It was truly an incredible journey.
Wow.
I, w- I was listening today to one of your talks, and you said that 20 years ago, lightweight technology was laughable, I think was the term that you used. And today, Krystal and I have been doing lives every week, probably for a year and a half, and we see people come on that I say that I'd be looking for a bridge or a rope because of the conditions that
Mhm.
some of these people have lived with for years, if not decades. Multiple medications. I'll never forget the one lady, 18 meds in the morning, 18
Yeah.
meds at night, 25 years or whatever. She puts on the X39, and 6 weeks later, she's holding her grandchildren and telling the
Mhm.
hospital she's not having these $30,000 transfusions, which they didn't like, by the way. And I said, hey, if
Right.
I'm losing a
Right.
$30,000 every 6 weeks, I'm not going to be happy either. And I've come to the belief that this, what I've seen with my own eyes, I've heard more times
Mhm.
than I can remember. I mean, there was a guy on the podcast the other night talking. He said his feet hurt so bad he wanted his wife to cut him off. I
Mm.
mean, I just
My God.
how bad. And a couple weeks later, he's doing the live from Cancun, walking on the beach, and I'm like, this is like,
Wow.
so I believe, and with my whole heart, I'm thankful to have come across this. It sounded too good to be true. I thought we'll try it. Barbara, the first one patch wonder, got relief in 2 days, which I'm still amazed at. I believe it's the greatest health and wellness product ever invented, and I'm just at a loss to think how what's your thoughts on what this has done for? I mean, we're not talking to strain this or I mean, we're talking bad stuff that people have had, and this little silly magical miracle works on so many, and we get results that still blow me away, and we get them every week.
But David,
Yeah.
two-part question really quick before you answer that. Did you know that this was going to be possible? All these type of ailments that have been restored, rebalanced, like did you know that it was possible with this?
I would say, what's the best way to answer that? I think I would say I certainly knew there was a very, very broad range of effects. So when I
Mm.
started to develop X39 and I was focusing in on this peptide and doing the research to see, would it be possible to trigger, I had looked at work that was done on the peptide in treatment of cancer, treatment of diabetes, regeneration of peripheral nerves and so forth. So enhancement of immune function. Um, so yeah, there was certainly enough data out there from researchers like Dr. Picard, who spent 50 years investigating the effects of GHK that that if we could get at least even modest increases in copper peptide levels, much less restore them to youthful levels, we could probably see um, the type of effects that we're seeing. But I think the outcome is actually better than what I would have hoped
Yeah,
for. I'd probably say it that way.
yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
That's amazing. Okay, I'm going to ask you this question. We get asked this a lot. There's only been less than a handful of people that are like, I wore these patches for a month or 6 months and nothing happened to me. I didn't feel anything. So what do you say to anybody that has that kind of reaction or
Yeah.
experience?
Well, there's always going to be legitimately a percentage of people that won't respond. So if we took a traditional health product, an herb, a pharmaceutical drug, you may find 60% of the population, 70% of the population respond, maybe, as high as 85 or 90%, but that would be extraordinarily high for people to respond. And usually those products would be very, very basic. So, for example,
Mhm.
creatine would be a great example of a product that people take and most people are going to respond very favorably to it. Um, but there's always going to be a percentage of people that aren't responders. So,
Mhm.
in the case of a product like X39, it's only about 5% of the population. And in these cases, what we found is that from other literature is that these people are going to have very severe deficiencies of potassium, calcium,
Oh.
magnesium. They're extremely dehydrated.
Mhm.
I know I've worked with people that just refuse to drink water. They're older, they're very, very dehydrated, and they just don't respond to pretty much anything.
Mhm.
Um, so, that's okay. Not every product is going to have a 100% response, except one product I invented, where it is literally 100% so far.
Oh my God.
Most products, yeah, you're not going to have that. But with X39, it is about 95%. And in our studies, we do see statistical significance. So in those cases, I would say that either people aren't monitoring the results,
Mhm.
they are getting results, but it's not really so obvious,
Mhm.
or they're very dehydrated. And I would recommend, drinking less coffee, tea, and drinking more water. That would be a good start.
Could you just let people know why it's so important, the hydrating part? Like, how does that affect the overall effects of the patches?
Yeah, it's not so much the patches as it is the way the cell works in the
Right,
first
right,
place. So the way the patches are working is that it's turning on energy production and it's elevating fat burning. And in order to do that, we need water, along with proper nutrition. So if people are dehydrated, they're not going to be able to make energy. If they're not making energy, they're not going to be able to make peptides or heal or,
Okay.
do anything else. Many times when people are suffering with pain, it actually is a manifestation of dehydration and a deficiency in electrolytes. Copper, actually, in and of itself, is very interesting. Many people suffer from conditions where they're very sensitive to pain, and that can actually be treated by taking a copper supplement. It makes people less susceptible or less sensitive to pain.
Wow.
So sometimes
Okay.
these things have an underlying existence from poor diet.
Amazing.
What
Thank you.
what was your first aha God moment going through your career? Like, what was there one time when you said you knew that was a divine inspiration? It had to come from God the Father through whatever and all your. What was the one moment that if you were going to leave us tomorrow, you say, "I'll never forget this." Was there?
Oh, I'd say there's been so many things. The day that I knew that I was saved, I was in prayer and I felt the Spirit of God come upon me.
Wow.
And I drove to work that day. I posted this on social media, which I never do. And I drove to work and I was just about to pull into down the street where our office is, and it was a beautiful sunny day here in Florida. And I looked up in the sky and I saw a cross made of clouds. And
Oh my God.
I pulled over and stopped and took several pictures of it. And then I posted that over to, I asked our marketing people to put that on our website. And that was truly, truly extraordinary. But in the field of inventions, I literally have insights that come from the Lord all the time.
Mhm.
But the most memorable, I would say, is what I've been talking about quite frequently, is where I worked for years to try to figure out how are planaria, hydractinia, tardigrades, ants, lobsters not aging,
Mhm.
and I uncover this code after years, and then in a Bible study I see the same numerical sequences, and
Oh my God.
that was really extraordinary. I didn't need the proof that God exists, but I thought, wow, this is really such a great way to take this a message that there is a God, God is real, and God put His signature in natural living organisms in this world, so we can know that this is not all an accident. We were all
Mhm.
divinely created.
Good.
Oh,
Wow. That's
that's
incredible.
amazing.
Thank you. Thank
Someone asked, my sister-in-law actually asked, what supplements should you take? Is there specific supplements that you should take to go with the X39 or any of the patches in general?
I think what I'd say is, what are the supplements that people should take if they want to have a maximum lifespan and
Okay.
they want to stay as young and healthy as long as possible? So, some of the things, well, this will be a little bit of a spoiler, but some of the
Okay.
things that I'm finding in my research is that glutathione and nitric oxide are driving a longevity phenomena. And
Wow.
so there is a product that I'm going to be talking about next year. Next year, of course, is our 20th anniversary, and we're going to roll out something very, very special. And in our clinical studies, we're finding that if you, in order to induce meaningful changes in the genes to get the body to become younger, you have to feed the cells with glutathione and with nitric oxide. And there's
Okay.
a positive and negative feedback loop. So I'd certainly recommend that people take an NAC supplement, especially because, coming off the pandemic, NAC is going to be an antiviral. It's going to support immune function, and it plays a very, very critical role in driving longevity. Um, Alpha lipoic acid and acetyl L-carnitine are also really interesting. Carnitine specifically plays a role in manufacturing energy in the cell, and acetyl L-carnitine will improve cognition.
Okay.
So, we're all concerned about how we're aging and with our brain. Um, and acetyl L-carnitine and lipoic acid, they do a variety of very powerful things. Um, Beta alanine is another one that's inexpensive, and it's a precursor to carnosine and AHK. And the big value there is that it's going to support the telomeres and prevent the telomeres from shrinking. And probably just carnosine alone gets us about 30 to 40% increase in lifespan based
Mhm.
on studies, mammal studies, and during that time, at least in mammals that are fed a diet rich in carnosine, they don't age. They don't age until the very, very end of their life. So
Wow.
uh, uh, there's a number of nutrients like that that go a very, very long way to making meaningful improvements in length of life as well as overall quality.
Wow. That's a lot. Okay. Awesome. Thank you for that. That's very helpful.
Sure.
I heard you in Sarasota 2 years ago. Then I heard you this past year, and you gave God all the credit for the being downloaded. The information, and that certainly I can understand that. You talked about you thought we could live to be 250 or older. Is that still hold true?
Um, well, actually, I've had the belief for quite a while that the ages in the Bible are quite accurate,
Yeah.
Mhm.
that they're literal. And so, what I would say is that while living to 800, 900 years old and above is possible, you don't have statistics going for you.
Right.
So, in other words,
Right.
statistically speaking, people are likely to get in accidents, get sick and get injured and things like that. But of course, the longer that we go, um, healing 20 years from now, the way that we'll look at certain diseases will be very, very different than the way that we look at
Mhm.
them today. So already today, organs are being 3D printed. They're being injected with young stem cells. So 20 years from now, where people used to have to get bypass surgery,
Mhm.
they used to have a heart transplant. That'll be a thing of the past. We'll be able to insert a new, young, let's say 25-year-old heart into someone that's their heart, and
Wow.
people will replace presumably body parts that way. um, so this is all to say that living to 250 and above is going to be achievable in our lifetime. I completely believe that based on the work that we're doing and the work that others are doing.
Thank you.
And people will be young in the process. That's the really important part of it. You don't get to 250 and look like you're 250 years old. It doesn't work that way. The only way that you break
Oh,
the age barrier, at about 130, is if you're actually young.
wow.
And other species do it. So it's
Okay,
it's a lifetime of being young. I'd say that.
Great.
that's pretty
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, next question I have. Um, so with X39, if so, it's kind of a two-part question with X39. So if someone has chronic stuff and they're like, I don't know what to do, would X39 be enough for that? And then also, what was the other part of the question? Okay, just answer that part of the question first. It's I can't even
Okay.
read my own handwriting.
So what type of chronic condition are we talking about?
Oh, it was about age too. So a person that is older, will you see effects possibly faster if you are older because your stem cells have been dormant longer than you would of someone that was maybe in their 40s or 50s or 60s or something like that?
Yeah. So one of the things that's really exciting for people that are, let's say, over the age of 70, where they have virtually no stem cell activity, they have no telomeres left, is that the research shows that you can regenerate the telomeres and you can reactivate the stem cells. And we've
Mm-hmm.
actually seen this in practice. Where people, over the age of 70, we did a clinical study, and there was a woman, 77, and in about 3 weeks, she was able to have a remarkable improvement in cognition,
Mm-hmm.
where the brain waves went into synchronization, and that's something that definitely doesn't happen. So. Yeah, what I would say is for anyone that is over 60, over 70, it's so important to develop a strong foundation of a healthy diet, exercise, sleep, hydration, stay away from things that we know that aren't healthy, live a life of love and peace, and not hold anger and resentment, right? None of those things. And then having that foundation, tools like the patches are going to work really, really well. If someone is abusing their body, like not getting enough sleep, not getting proper nutrition, they're not going to get the best results. So this really is very much a holistic approach. But for people that are older, absolutely, they can get great results.
Okay. Thank you for that.
I had read somewhere, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the FDA only requires 2 double-blind placebo studies to make a claim. Is that correct?
Well, it's a little bit of a combination of the FDA and the FTC.
Okay.
So it used to be
Right.
2 studies.
Okay.
It's actually only 1 study now.
Okay.
They've changed since I started LifeWave, over 20 years ago. It used to be you could have 2 studies with 20 people per study, and now they've changed it to 1 study with over 40 people. So when we when we set up our studies, we'll first do a pilot with 20 people, and then we'll do a double-blind placebo-controlled with 50 people. So, but I mean, we have over 50 studies now. And so if they didn't like a few studies that we had, well, there's plenty of others to choose from. So that's okay.
Okay. Because I was going to ask, you had 80 or 90 double blind done. It seemed like either it was overkill or did it take that many to get to the final result of a product
No,
that you could present?
no, no. It's not like that at all. No, we
Okay.
have, no, we have, out of those, over 80 studies, there's
Right.
studies on the energy
Okay.
patches, study on Ice Wave,
Mhm.
studies on X39.
Okay.
And each time we do studies, we try to learn something other than just proving claims, and we'll try different types of techniques. So we'll of course do traditional blood and urine testing, but we also use technologies like BioWell, medical infrared imaging, multi-channel EEG, heart rate variability.
Mhm.
We'll use these different tools because we'll get a different look at what's going on in the body when you're applying the product. And then it allows you to say, well, if this is happening, then maybe we could do this other thing. And the ultimate goal, I'd say, is we when you solve the problem of aging and you get techniques and tools that prevent people from aging, the next step really is let's develop techniques to allow the body to heal very, very rapidly. And what I've done in these approaches is looked at something which I think is very controversial, but it just turns out that it works. And there's a way of manipulating the mitochondria so it will produce more energy than is normally possible, and then that allows for synthesis of proteins faster than possible. So what we've seen is we've seen injuries heal in about 15 minutes that would normally take 10 hours. We have one technology that I invented that took about 5 years to develop. And in the first trial, we showed that if someone got a broken bone, instead of it healing in 6 weeks, it would heal in about 12 hours. So these are things that where you'd say, well, if someone, let's say wasn't aging, but all of a sudden they were in a bad accident and they had a life-threatening injury, we can apply these techniques in the future and allow people to heal rapidly and save lives. That would be the goal, among other
Wow.
things.
Thank you. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question about pain. So I've been on the patches or using the patches for 16 months. Most of my pain is gone. I had it in literally every joint in my body. The one stubborn pain that sometimes resurfaces is elbow, which I don't know if it's golfers or tennis elbow, it's nerve type. And then I had a high hamstring minor tear years ago, never had it fixed or anything, and that still bothers me. So is it possible that there's other things still being repaired? Like, is there a certain time span that, well, by year one, you should be completely repaired? Like, I just want to give people an idea because they're like, I've been on these things for 2 weeks and I don't feel anything. And it's like, we have to be realistic about the journey of healing the body. And I'm 16 months later and I've had so many improvements, but there's a couple of things that I still notice physically that I still have. So what would you say to that?
Yeah, so that's actually a very interesting subject because it has to do with how stem cells work in the body, where they
Okay.
migrate to, and where we find colonies of stem cells. So, for example, you don't find stem cells in the heart. And so this is why when people get injuries, let's say they have a poor diet and someone has a stroke or they have a heart attack, repairing that damage is extraordinarily difficult.
Mm.
Tendons are another one. Tendons take exceptionally long to heal, whereas muscle tissue, liver is the most regenerative organ in the body. So if someone has damaged liver, it can actually heal very, very rapidly. And same thing with muscle tissue is another example. Um, so yeah, there's going to be it's a symptom of the way tissues differentiate in the body,
Okay.
that some are going to be more prone to regeneration and then others not so much.
Mm.
And so that's part of the challenge in regenerative medicine is some parts of the body, like tendons, are very, very stubborn, more difficult to heal, but they will heal over time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Amazing. Thank you.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I was listening to your interview with Alex Zach, very interesting. And
Mhm.
I didn't know that Manny Paquin was wearing the patches. I knew about Phil, the strong guy.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Richard Quick had won 17 NCAA titles, which is, oh my gosh. Krystal, we were able to sign up a couple of Kansas City Chiefs, and their comment was they felt like they were back in college.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my question is, professional athletes know about the X39 energy enhancers, and it's helped so many. And was there anyone in particular that stood out to you? Because you've met all kinds of incredible gifted athletes that just were, and Richard Quick himself is like, what a man he must have been. Even you said that when you win that many titles, you can be a little particular and set in your ways. And I could understand that because I've worked with people that were kind of creative and this is how we're going to do it. I'm like, okay. But
Yeah.
what is Manny Pacquiao just really surprised me.
Yeah. I came within a few inches of meeting Manny Pacquiao, and I
Pacquiao, there you
didn't.
go.
So
Well, yeah.
one of my Lifeway friends, Henry Young, from the Philippines, was good friends with Manny Pacquiao, and Henry applied the patches on him, and he sent me a picture, and he said, "Hey, if you had been up in L.A. this weekend,
Beautiful.
you would have had dinner with Manny
Yeah.
and put patches on him." Yeah, the first athlete that I ever patched was Herschel Walker.
Oh, wow.
And so I had a
Wow.
business meeting, and Herschel Walker showed up, and really, he was, I think, I know I met him when he was about 48. And I think I met him when he was 42 and then 48. And his physique was
Wow.
absolutely incredible. Looked like he could have been still, playing football. He was still doing, I think, 2,000 push-ups a day
Oh
as
my
part of
God.
his routine. Yeah, Herschel was really an incredible guy. Ronnie Coleman, was another one. He it just Ronnie was 330 pounds at about my height off season.
Wow.
And, it was like you felt very safe next to
A
Ronnie. And
bulldozer.
it was like, he was
Oh my.
standing like next to a bear,
Oh, God.
but Richard really was an incredible guy.
Had to be.
Six-time U.S. Olympic swimming coach, extremely humble,
Wow.
and always was thinking of the athletes first. And Richard, was obviously a competitor. He wanted to be on the cutting edge, but he never he would never do anything that would put his athletes in harm.
Sure.
And so we spent a lot of time together going over how this worked, why it was safe. And he said, okay, let's try it on the athletes. And during the first 3 weeks, 6 out of his 8 swimmers broke their personal
What?
lifetime best in their event. And Tara Kirk, she broke the world record in the 50-meter breaststroke. And she was very interesting because she was going for her PhD in biochemistry, and I know that she was extremely skeptical.
Mhm.
But the results spoke for themselves, and she
Yeah.
was convinced.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Mhm.
Hey, great
Cool.
convention, by the way, before I forget. And I saw that the first
Great.
weekend we had already surpassed what was there this past year, this past October.
It's true. Well, so I have to ask you 2 questions then, since you've been asking me all the questions.
Yeah.
The first one is, how did you like the brandy? Did you get a chance? Well, actually, Crystal, you may not have been there,
I
right?
wasn't.
Okay. Well, Gary, how do you like the brandy?
20 years clean and sober.
Okay. All right. Well, man, I'm talking to the wrong people then. Well,
I heard
I
good
bought.
things. I heard good
I,
things.
I invented a new type of method for processing alcohol with light. And so
What?
the brandy has some healing properties to it. And so I bought 3,000 people a round of brandy shots.
Oh my.
Uh, and
Dr. Stacy said I loved
Dr.
it. She's in
Stacy
here.
loved it.
I bet, Mama.
Yeah.
and then, well, I guess, did you get a chance to see the new drone that we have that kind of looks like a
Oh, my.
spaceship?
I got to ask you, what is Lockheed Martin and Amazon thinking? They're getting beat up by Lifeway with drones. I mean, they got to be scratching their heads.
Yeah, that word hasn't gotten to them yet, but it eventually it will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Laura.
I think there's some actually interesting opportunities in the future for our business in the drone space. So by
Wow.
2030, drone communications alone globally is going to be a $200 billion a year industry, and so I eventually would like to have a network of these drones that could act as communications hubs. So if we wanted to have this be a completely private communication, we could do that through this network. So
Yeah.
that's the scope that I'm thinking on, but it'll take some time to get there. But with the technology that we're developing in drones, it's possible.
How about the beam me up Scotty thing with the whatever? Is that a possibility? Is that on the drawing board somewhere? Remember the food?
Well,
God.
I did beam into the event as a
Yeah,
hologram.
yeah.
So yeah,
Wow.
I would say that probably if I was disassembling myself, my wife wouldn't be too happy about that.
Right.
She'd be probably quite upset. There's some limits to what I can and can't do there. But I think what I'd say is that beyond when we solve the problem of aging, which I feel pretty good that the problem has in fact been solved, just not proven, that there are always going to be some new horizons to explore. And there's some new horizons that I want to be looking at for drones. There's some new ambitions that I've hinted at this convention that we'll be talking about next year. And these continue to open up further opportunities in our business for our community to have a business and make money with
Mhm.
um, through a very, very diverse range of technologies like in power generation and in agriculture. And these are going to be things that we're going to need because we know that there's a lot of dark forces in the world, and they're trying to contaminate our food supply, our air and water, push drugs on us that aren't good, and we need tools to fight back with. So that's really what this is ultimately all about.
Wow.
Great.
Wow, David. You're, just that alone is just incredible. Thank you for that and for everything that you've brought to this realm. It's incredible. And Dr. Stacey said, what a blessing. And it truly is an absolute blessing. I just wanted to ask you, people in the comment section are like, hey, which patch would I get for this? Hey, which patch? I have this, I have that. Would you say X39 is the one-stop shop?
Yeah, absolutely. The people absolutely should start with X39. There's going to be specific cases where people may want to detox. So let's say someone had been a smoker or a drinker. They may want to go through a cycle of using the glutathione
Mhm.
patch. People focusing on athletics might want to use X49, the carnosine patch.
Mhm.
People focusing on cognition, etc. But X39 is definitely a very, very broad net, and that should be the go-to for people. Absolutely.
Mhm. Would one more question regarding that? Would you say that the X39 like is enough if someone's just starting off and they have all these things going on? Would you say, here you go, here's X39?
Yeah, potentially. There's so many. There's so many variables there in terms of someone's diet, lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
genetics, pre-existing health conditions. Are they taking medication? So you do have to factor all those things in. But I'd say for the majority of the population, using X39 is going to take them very, very far.
Amazing. Okay. Perfect.
So, can anyone? I don't know if this. Can anyone? Are stem cell injections available in the USA?
They are, but the FDA is really cracking down on them,
Right.
and so they are certainly going to be regulating stem cells like drugs, and that's going to drive up the cost, and it's going to limit the availability. And there's still quite a number of very significant issues on stem cell injections that have to be overcome. Specifically in terms of you get a donation of stem cells, let's say from another source, and how do we know that they're going to divide in a controlled fashion? By and large, the safest way to get stem cell therapy is to harvest out a person's own stem cells
Mhm.
and then re-inject them at the point they're needed. But that has disadvantages because, of course, when people need young stem cells, it's when they're older and they're
Mhm.
more susceptible to injury. So there's the stem cell The traditional stem cell model of injecting stem cells has a long way to go before it's going to see, I think, some significant success in the market. But eventually we'll get there.
Great.
Mhm. Would,
Yeah.
one more thing, would you say that stem cell injections are superior to the X39, or the X39 is superior to stem cell injection?
I would say that if we were to take the state of the art of stem cells today, I think X39 is better because it's less
Mm.
expensive. It can be applied daily and over a long period of time, whereas a single stem cell injection is $5,000. In that ballpark, you do it once and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but then you have to keep repeating it. So I
Mm-hmm.
think the beauty of the patch technology is that you get small effects over a long period of time, and the effects after 30 days of using the patches, what we've seen is superior to just
Mm-hmm.
getting a single stem cell injection. But that's my opinion
Yeah.
based on observation. It's not an opinion based on a study.
I was fortunate enough to be in the front row both days. It was an out of body experience, and Dr. Stacy and her crew, I somehow was able to tag along there. And I heard you say that God the Father graced us with the ability to stop aging, something to that effect, and that was coming next year. And I tell people that David is a pretty serene, humble guy, but I could almost feel him beating on his chest. I can't wait to, tell the world whatever it is you've discovered and invented. And would you say it's on par with the X39? It goes hand in hand. I know it's not a patch. You kind of led that, but it sounds like it's going to be quite a game changer.
Um, what I think what I would say is that the scientists that have evaluated it have said that this does not work by any physics they understand, and that
Wow.
it's doing things that aren't explainable. The first version of this, I have a patent on actually, and I've gotten several patents on some new tech. But this first device, which we're not coming out with, I initially thought that it might be this, but it turned out it wasn't. Um, it was going to be a pendant that you wore that I call a biophotonic reflector. And what it would do is selectively, it would take photons that are coming off the body and then filter them, and then take specific photons and stimulate the skin with those photons. So it would be related to the patch, but very, very different.
Oh my
And we did experiments with this, and we measured the cell capacitance, and what we were getting 2 to 3 years of age reversal in only 10 minutes. And that was kind of like my first try at that. But the
Oh my God.
problem was that we were actually reversing the age of the cells too rapidly, and it was putting too much stress on the cells.
Wow.
So I kind of went back to the drawing board and say, okay, I'm in the right ballpark, but we've got to get better control over this.
Oh my.
So it's different but complementary to the patches for sure.
Great.
David,
Okay. Well,
you have just like all of your little things on a shelf somewhere. You're like, let's play with this one today. I think we'll go with this guy. It's like endless, the amount. I just don't get it. It's You're just so fascinating as a human.
Um, well, I was speaking with, I have a patent that I'm going to be filing early next year. And I was on, my patent attorney is a graduate from MIT in mechanical engineering. So we were going through this device today, and he said, there are no patents like this. You're in a totally different category. And I think we're going to get what's called a pioneering patent, which is the patent office creates a new category. And then that means if you're the first in that territory, you get very, very broad claims, and everybody else that comes after you has a little bit more difficult time. And then he said, I often say to the people around my office, I think you're from the future. And I said, well, that could be a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know how to take that. So
I think it's a good thing.
maybe it's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say the business opportunity for us personally has been like nothing we'd ever expected. We were debt free 2 years. I wrote a tithing check today for the amount that I used to make in a week. That's all a credit to LifeWave. I said, God owns it all. I certainly, a matter of fact, I was on vacation and I didn't, write my checks. And when I, wrote that number out, I just looked and thought, that's all what we've gotten through the grace of God and LifeWave and the business opportunity, like nothing I've ever seen. Thank you very much for your generosity and what you're doing.
I second
It
that.
really does all come back to giving God credit. I mean, ultimately, people, I think today have the wrong view of God, in the sense that we're really created for God's pleasure. And so it's our job to do things that are pleasing. It's not ultimately, the path to salvation, but that's one of the purposes for us being here. And the way we please God is through loving one another, helping one another, healing one another, supporting one another. Because the life is on its own, without some of the problems people create, extraordinarily difficult. So yeah, if our company can all be about giving people hope and healing and that message, then I think we've done extraordinarily well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
oh
my God.
It's been the greatest event in my entire 72 years. And even today, I'm still, what Krystal and I have seen over a year and a half, and people that I've seen and heard their testimonials. Can't thank you enough for your time and your inventions and your kindness. And we're thrilled to be on board, your leadership. And I've never met like you, Richard Quick. I've never met anyone like you. So thank you for that.
Yes.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome. Thank you.
We love you dearly. And again, just thank you for everything that you've done for millions of people around the world, and many more to go.
My pleasure. Thanks. It was great seeing you both.
Have a beautiful
Take care. Have a great night.
Thank you, David.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Almost.